So at CES, we did have Sony unveil the PlayStation VR2 with its specifications and even a game to show off there. Well, we are starting to get more and more information. I just wanted to take some time to talk a bit more about this headset. I mentioned it in Newswave this morning, but there are still a few other things to get into here, especially when it comes down to like the pricing and potentially when it could be releasing. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So, as you may have noticed in Newswave this morning, there was a lot of information getting thrown around when it came down to the PlayStation VR2. And, I mean, they filled out an entire blog post over on PlayStation.com just with specifications, which we can see some of that here. They did also go into detail with some of the other info, like the visual fidelity with the foveated rendering, and the tracking when it comes to not needing a camera separate from the headset, and the one cable hookup, which is great because one of the biggest deterrents from just using your PlayStation VR now is the fact that it's a whole thing just to get it hooked up. So I like that. We're not quite to the position where Sony would be able to do like a full wireless implementation of it. This would be the next best thing. It's a USB-C cable. You plug it into the PS5 and you go. So for the most part, when it comes down to specifications here, they look pretty good, even when you compare them to some of the other leading headsets in its space. I mean, if you look, they're going to be using an OLED display, which is pretty good considering I know a lot of the other displays use LCD panels. And at 2000 by 2040 per eye, that puts it pretty much between the Valve Index and the HTC Vive Pro 2 when it comes down to resolution. For example, the Valve Index here, 1440 by 1600 LCDs, for full RGB per pixel with, they say, ultra-low persistence global backlight illumination. But this will actually support up to 144 hertz, whereas if you look at PlayStation, they have up to 120 hertz. And if we go over here, this is the Vive Pro 2, which is a very popular headset for, again, enthusiast level. The resolution for this one, 2448 by 2448, and this also supports up to 120 hertz. It seems like the Valve Index is the one when it comes down to refresh rate, but the Valve Index does skimp out on several other things, which includes the screens themselves, and it actually comes in at a pretty good price point when you look around at the market. The Valve Index for the headset itself comes in at $500. That Vive Pro 2, I mean, just the headset for that is $800. So it's a bit expensive to get into the VR landscape now, especially if you want that pro experience like the HTC Vive Pro 2. To go up to the full kit, it's like $1,400 or something. So I start to think a bit about, okay, where is Sony going to be placing the PlayStation VR2 when it comes to pricing? And in my mind right now, it's probably between the Valve Index and the Pro 2 when it just comes down to the headset. So between $500 and $800. But remember, they're going to be controllers that I assume are just included in the box with the headset. It would be weird if they just sold the headset by itself without the controllers that, I mean, are going to be crucial for some of the experiences they're going to be doing here. And if you look at the Valve Index, it's up there. It's like $750. I just told you the Pro 2 from Vive is $1,400. It's over $1,000 essentially for that package there. So you look at that and you say, okay, between $750 and $1,000, it has some features that are actually ahead of the Valve Index. What are they going to be looking for with this headset? I saw some people give a range of $300 to $600 for this PlayStation VR2, and I think they're going to get hit with some sticker shock, as I mentioned this morning. I wouldn't be shocked if the PlayStation VR2 package was over $600, and I know that's going to hit when that gets announced. If Sony can come in $600 or less for the PlayStation VR2 bundle, the package with the controllers, the headset, everything you need, I think that would be a massive win for them just based on the other headsets in that space. It's not a great comparison to the Quest 2 because that's an all-in-one headset and it's not nearly as capable as what we're seeing here, just with the specs on paper from PlayStation VR 2. That being said, you do still need a PlayStation 5, which is hard enough for people to find now, and the PSVR 2, I assume, will also be difficult to find because Sony is looking at this and saying, well, the PlayStation VR eventually got over 5 million units sold, but it took a little while. Do they think the VR2 headset the complete package for, we'll say, $600 flies off the shelf when they're having a hard enough time stocking the PS5. Not necessarily, so there could be stock issues right out of the gate for it either way, but I do wonder about that pricing with VR still being pretty niche overall in the grand scheme of things with games, and of course them catering to the enthusiast side of things with their pricing and the specifications, if it will be that hot item that Sony is hoping for here. And a lot of that will come down to the games themselves, and I don't necessarily mean just original games, integration into games that people may be buying already, like Gran Turismo. That is one that I think we'll see some pretty heavy integration when it comes to PlayStation VR2, because looking at the specifications here, this should be a really good experience, like top shelf experience, and having things like foveated rendering will at least work to extend the life of this headset probably throughout the entirety of the generation without it feeling as archaic as the PlayStation VR headset did towards the end of the PS4's life. So I have the pricing right now at about $600. That's my expectation. If it's above that, that's going to make the sell even harder. If it's below that, though, if it comes in at $500, I will be pleasantly surprised based on everything they're talking about here. But when are we going to see this thing get announced? Well, now there are some reports going around currently that shipping will be starting Q2 2022, which is actually sooner than I was expecting. I thought this would have been an item that would get shipped out holiday. Like, that's when I thought they were going to try to move this thing, we'll say, in October, not necessarily in May or June. That a little sooner than I was thinking there, but maybe Sony's thinking, hey, the sooner we can launch this thing, the sooner we can work on building up that install base along with the PS5. The PS5 supply is going to be brought up a lot when it comes down to launching the PSVR 2 and when the best time is. And based on our current trajectory with things like the chip shortage and what some of these major companies like Intel expect, there's not going to be a good time for a couple of years. You might as well start getting all of your hardware figured out, launched, and then just try to do what you can to supply it. And I will tell you this, there are a lot of talks now going around that there would be an event to show off the PlayStation VR 2 beyond what we saw at CES pretty soon. Like, I haven't seen a timetable necessarily, but there are a couple of people currently talking about this happening like very, very soon. And when I hear that, I think, okay, could this be like next week? Could it be by the end of this month? And I mean, Sony could show up with a blog post at any time, because the first time they told us about the PSVR 2, it was just out of nowhere. PlayStation blog, here are the controllers we'll be using with that headset, and we'll see you guys next year. And here we are now with CES, and yeah, they showed us quite a bit when it comes to the specifications, but not the headset itself, which makes me think that's going to be a whole presentation on its own, because the PS5 was getting built up for quite some time, and it is not at all what we were picturing the next PlayStation to look like. So I'm kind of thinking the headset may have that, we'll say, unique look to it. And while we know about one game, that being Horizon Call of the Mountain, I would expect several more games to be ready to go at launch, or at least shown close to launch, and that would be probably Gran Turismo, maybe something from Team Asobi with like something for maybe integration for Astro's Playroom. Maybe there's a VR thing that you download and you can play around in that. It'd be kind of cool there. And I'm sure there are some third-party games like Half-Life Alyx preparing and getting ready to go for launch on that platform. It sounds like we're going to be hearing more about the PSVR 2 pretty soon, and then we could be seeing it launch potentially in the next 4 to 5 months. So we'll see how all this goes down. Pricing is going to be the biggest thing here, because people are already kind of on VR. Like, you have to be able to experience it, and in order to do that, you got to find a PlayStation 5. Even if you go into a store like a Best Buy or a Walmart or someone who has a display unit and you could try it out, you're going to take it off and be like, great, I'll take this and a PS5. And they'll say, we're out of both. So again, supply and price are going to be the biggest sticking points right now. But let me know what you guys think about the PSVR 2, the specifications here, and give me your best guess on the pricing, because I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.